Hi, my name is Rohan Alexander. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Toronto, and I'd like to talk through my R package, Heaps of Papers. And essentially what it does is make it really easy for you to go and get a whole bunch of PDFs or CSVs or websites from the internet and get them onto your own computer. This was joint work by myself and A. Mafuz, who is a master's student here at U of T. So the important stuff first, the hex sticker looks like that. But the typical use case is where we have a whole bunch of PDFs and we want to try and get them from the internet onto our own computer. And so here we have 3 different PDFs, and we might be interested in downloading them so that we can do some analysis of them. So we do need to use DevTools. It's not on CRAN yet, but we install the package. And the basic requirement in order to use the package is a data frame that has 2 columns. Those columns are a column of URLs, and that is whatever it is that you want to get off the internet and onto your computer, and a column of names that you use to save them. And so that's what it's going to be saved as locally. And so the main function of the package is get and save, and that takes 3 arguments. So the first is the data. So that's the data set. That's the name of the data set that we just made. It takes a links, and that's the name of the column that contains the links that we're going to go and get from the internet. And it takes save names, and that's the name of the column that contains the names that we're going to save them to locally. And so by default, it will actually it'll actually create a folder. It's going to be called heaps of, and if that folder doesn't exist, then it will create it in your working directory. But we can specify a directory to save it to, and so in this case, it's going to save it to a folder called inputs. And again, if this doesn't exist, then it will ask you in the console if you want to create it and go through that way. Now, when we're scraping data, it's important that we are as polite as possible, and part of that is sort of limiting duplicate gathering of data. And so there is a function that's built in, and it says, well, if there are duplicates, if we've already got some of these PDFs or websites or CSVs, then what should I do? And so you can specify that you should ignore those. And so in that case, it's not going to regather those PDFs. By default, it will regather them, but if you can specify a dupe strategy, and then that will remove that. And finally, by default, it does, not finally, but by default, it waits 5 seconds between calls to a server. And so we can specify a slightly larger number or a slightly less number. There is a bit of intelligence that's built into this. And so it's not exactly 5 seconds by default. It's something between 4 to 6. And similarly, there is a bit of jitter as you specify your own number of seconds, but you can't specify 0. You do need to specify some delay. And the final point here is that by default, it is a very verbose package. So it's going to say, look, I've gone and got your first PDF. Yes, I've gone and got your second PDF. Oh no, your third PDF did not work. And so that's all printing to the console. If you don't want that to print, then you can say, well, look, just specify, print every second line, row of the data set, print every 10th row if they don't print, and so here we've actually specified, well, this is going to print every second row, but the default is that it will print to the console every time. Then you know where it's up to, what the time is, that sort of stuff. So I'll do a live code demo here, and what I'd like to do is just grab some code from the package website. So in this case, I'm not going to need to install the package, but we could do that if we wanted to. So we're just going to call the library here. So we're making a new R script. And then we're going to create a data set that we're going to be interested in getting. So we'll just have a quick look at that just so you can see. So we've got a bunch of websites, and that's what we're interested in downloading. And then we've got a save name here. So in this case, it's going to save it as a Caesar.pdf. These are PDFs. So now we're just going to specify the default behavior. And what we're going to see is, because the default folder is not in this working directory, it's going to ask us, do we want to proceed? So would we like for this folder to be created? Yes, no, cancel. And so in this case, I would like it to be created. And we can see that, that it's created the folder. If we had a look at that, it's actually already downloaded the first one. And now it's down to the second one. You can see what I'm talking about, it being rather verbose. At this point, I will specify, we can actually specify a directory if we wanted to. Again, it's going to ask us, do we want this to be created? And we'll say yes. And it's going to go, we'll go and have another look up here, and it's created inputs. So if we had a look in here now, it is going to go and get those PDFs. However, this is already created. So if we were to run this again, and I'll just copy this again, what it should do is it should say, look, you've already got these. Do you really want to, maybe you should think about if you really want to go and get them. And so beg your pardon. So the issue here is that I forgot to specify the duplicate strategy. And so in this case, we're going to specify a duplicate strategy. And so we're just going, okay, so in this case, so I've now specified duplicate strategy. So this directory already exists. We've already got all of the files that we're interested in. I'm just going to specify a duplicate strategy. And so again, now at this point, it's saying, look, you've already got these, possibly they already exist. And so we'll go and have a look. So that's a brief overview of how the package works. I'll just return to the slides. So just briefly to close up, just a few, this was sort of the first of the major packages that I've put together. And so I learned a lot through the process. So the first is the importance of writing tests. So in my previous package development, I hadn't really emphasized that. And this was the first package that I really went to town with the tests. And certainly it is the way to go in terms of developing packages. More specifically, I found cross-platform functionality, so making sure that things worked on Mac, on PC, on Linux. I found that cross-platform functionality took a lot of effort to work, and part of this was the writing tests, because that allowed us to take advantage of GitHub Actions, which tests these things on multiple platforms. Code that I thought would have been fairly infallible turned out to be fallible, and so that was a surprise. And so being careful to test things that I sort of didn't think to test, it was another lesson. More generally, I think it's very important that we actually integrate creating packages into all of our teaching, and of course the importance of friends. So you'll notice that my code was sort of failing for about 2 or 3 weeks, and it wasn't until I sort of got a friend involved, Paul in this case, that I managed to solve the problem. And so thank you very much. I hope that you will consider using Heaps of Papers if you need to get a whole bunch of stuff from the internet onto your own computer, and would appreciate any comments or feedback. But thank you very much.